Terry Eagleton's The Illusions of Postmodernism criticizes postmodern thought and culture. Postmodernism is not a new stage of thought but a sign of political disappointment. It grew out of the collapse of socialist movements and the rise of global capitalism in the late 20th century. For him, postmodern ideas such as disbelief in truth, reason, and progress show not freedom but confusion and loss of political hope. Eagleton begins by explaining the difference between postmodernity and postmodernism. Postmodernity means the time we live in, a world shaped by technology, media, and consumer culture. Postmodernism is the set of ideas that fits this world. It celebrates diversity, playfulness, and uncertainty. It dislikes big systems of thought such as Marxism or religion that claim to explain everything. However, Eagleton says postmodernism reflects the spirit of late capitalism. Just as markets mix everything together and sell it, postmodern art and theory mix all styles and truths together. Behind its playful surface lies the logic of a market driven world. In the chapter Beginnings, Eagleton imagines what happens when a revolutionary movement fails. When people no longer believe that they can change society, they turn to smaller things, private feelings, language, identity, and culture. Since they cannot fight the system directly, they focus on its margins and celebrate difference instead of unity. The idea that there is no truth or no total system comes from this loss of political confidence. The love of ambiguity and irony is a sign of defeat. People who cannot act to change the world find comfort in saying that truth itself does not exist. Postmodern thinkers move away from hard political questions towards safer topics such as the body, sexuality, or art. They say that everything is a matter of language. This attitude hides despair. If nothing is real outside of words, then there is nothing we can do to fix injustice in the real world. Eagleton admits that postmodernism has done some good. It gave attention to women, racial minorities, and colonized peoples who had been ignored by earlier thinkers. It showed that power and knowledge are connected and that Western universal ideas often hide privilege. These are real achievements. However, he argues postmodernism often treats these issues only as cultural matters and not as economic ones. It forgets that oppression is also tied to class and capitalism. By avoiding economic analysis, it weakens political struggle. He says that today's cultural left talks endlessly about language, identity, and sexuality, but says little about capitalism, which actually shapes all these things. The result is what he calls a politics of the signifier, a world where changing words is seen as more important than changing material life. This kind of politics is shallow and safe. It looks radical but does not challenge the system that causes inequality. Eagleton strongly criticizes postmodern thinkers for rejecting truth and reason. They claim that all knowledge is relative, that what is true for one group may not be true for another. This is dangerous. If we give up on truth, we cannot fight oppression because we cannot say that injustice is really wrong. Saying that everything is just interpretation makes it impossible to argue for fairness or human rights. Postmodernism contradicts itself. It says there are no big truths or grand stories. However, that statement itself is a grand story about how the world works. In denying truth and universality, postmodernism secretly creates its own universal rule that nothing universal exists. Eagleton calls this the biggest illusion of postmodernism. Postmodernism, influenced by psychoanalysis and linguistic theory, says that the self is not whole or stable but fragmented and changeable. Eagleton agrees that people are shaped by history and society, but he argues that we still need some sense of unity and agency to act politically. If the self is completely unstable, then who will stand up for justice or organize change? The celebration of the broken or descentered subject reflects a world where individuals feel powerless under capitalism. Freedom needs subjects who can make choices and take responsibility. Eagleton looks at postmodern culture, art, architecture, literature, and media and finds that it mirrors the global market. Its mix of styles, irony, and recycling of old images resembles consumer society where everything can be bought and sold. Postmodern art is often surface without depth. It entertains but rarely challenges. By blurring the line between high and popular culture, it hides the power relations behind art and money. The celebration of diversity and local difference often becomes an excuse for avoiding deeper political questions. The market, he says, loves postmodernism because it turns rebellion into another product to sell. Eagleton does not simply reject postmodernism. He wants to move beyond it. He says socialism must learn from postmodernism's focus on culture, identity, and difference, but without losing its belief in truth, reason, and justice. We can accept diversity while still fighting for universal human values like equality and freedom. He calls this new attitude pre-postmodernism, a position that has learned from postmodern critique but come out stronger on the other side. Eagleton believes that humans need shared ideals to live meaningfully. Relativism leads to moral emptiness. Without common standards, tolerance turns into apathy. Postmodernism claims that belief in progress and reason cause tyranny, but Eagleton insists that the problem is not reason itself, it is injustice and misuse of power. To abandon truth because it has been abused is to throw away the very tools needed to fight oppression. Eagleton calls postmodernism an illusion because it mistakes weakness for wisdom. It confuses the laws of hope with insight. Its irony and relativism hide a deep despair about the possibility of change. Postmodernism may look rebellious, but it actually fits comfortably within capitalism, which also thrives on novelty, pluralism, and endless consumption. By making everything uncertain and fragmented, it prevents people from uniting to challenge injustice. Eagleton urges readers to recover the moral and political imagination that postmodernism has drained away. We need to rebuild faith in truth, solidarity, and collective struggle. Only by reconnecting thought with action can we hope to change the world. The goal is not to return to old style Marxism, but to renew its spirit of justice in a modern form.